lollipop each time. And I'm very fucking proud of it too.
Absolutely. Todd Ian McDougall here from the University of Manitoba. As promised, Frances Whittleson has been hosting her Spectrum Street Epistemology for the last, I think, 15-20 minutes. It got started a little before 1 p.m., but we are here live. There is a good crowd around, lots of mainstream media and others here, lots of security. Frances is trying to speak right now.
I don't think maybe some people are lying, but it doesn't really matter if they're lying or not. What is the evidence? The GPR. That's one of the pieces of evidence. a hoax. Does anybody want to diverse arguments about why? You just listen to my giving my reasons as to why I don't think it's a hoax. Does that affect you in your view at all?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you because of all the noise that these people are making.
This is the guy that said Charlie Kirk, because I love this guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go, internet. Find this guy for me, please.
Ooh, that's basically a threat right there. That's a threat of violence. So who's that man? No, let's look at that man. There's a threat of violence. That man just threatened somebody.
So is Jaime here? No. So I know Jaime Rubenstein. He is a member of the Residential School Teachers Group. Or maybe not, he's an associate. Anyway, he argues that it is a hoax. And the reason why he argues that it's a hoax, and that's not my view.
Funny?
I'm just putting
funny?
I mean, you're funny.
I'm funny.
Yeah,
How so?
Thanks for stopping.
Well, you're trying to stop the conversation, which is kind of...
This is my way of conversing.
It's anti-intellectual.
My way.
It's an anti-intellectual.
I can hear.
Well, we can't.
I'm communicating
But
with
it's
you.
hard for other people to hear.
To say the least.
It's hard to hear.
No,
Anyway,
that's
we're
your
just going to
opinion.
deal with that.
That is my
opinion.
opinion. And you know what? I'm probably smarter than
It's
you.
not very conducive to intellectual
You know what?
discourse.
Just the fact
Like, this is
that
not an intellectual matter.
No,
This
that
is
you
a
are not
seriously
smart.
emotional.
Congratulations.
But universities are not about allowing people to follow their emotions. Universities are intellectual spaces where you follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Where's your
And
evidence?
we have intimidation that goes on at the University of Manitoba.
Why didn't you
Terrible mass intimidation that's happening. And we will not
Has
Why
she
didn't you
gone?
argue with her?
Has she gone to a residential school? Have you been to a residential school?
I have been.
Yeah, Rod,
Where? When?
In the Siksika and in Nuvik, I was in residential school there. I was a supervisor in one of these residential schools. I lived in one of these residential schools. My wife went to
What happened in those schools? Tell
Nobody
them.
got killed.
Tell them
Nobody-
what happened. He was a supervisor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're guilty by whatever job.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you let
Right.
evil perpetuate, you're just as guilty.
It is not perpetuated.
Yeah, it is. No, don't discuss, lady. They're violent.
So much for truth.
Oh yeah, truth, exactly.
But you,
Look up the definition.
Stand on this side and let Francis stand over there so you can argue with her in English so that everybody can understand.
Why in English? Why?
Okay,
because that's the lingua franca here.
No. Oh my gosh. I am French. I don't
you don't speak English.
I'm fine. Argue in French. What's the difference between French and this? This is a way of communicating. That
It is
not
a way of shutting down communication.
Yes, it is.
Well, okay, well, so you want to hear your views, Rod? Because Rod Clifton is here with me today. Rod Clifton was a supervisor at a residential school. Is that correct, Rod?
Yes.
Okay, what residential school were you a supervisor at?
Stringer Hall in Nuvik, 1966-67.
Okay, so you were a supervisor at Stringer Hall in Inuvik from 1966 to 1967. Were any children murdered in Inuvik?
Let me
No.
guess. No, of course.
Is there any reports of missing children in Inuvik?
No.
What was your impression of the residential school in Inuvik?
It was a school in which children were, it was a residence for the public school, Sir Alexander Mackenzie School, and I was 21 years of age. I was in charge of 85 kids in 3 different dorms. It provided an education for these children and a place where they could live. If they were living in their own communities, they would be able to have an education because they didn't have public school. Hunting camps and communities in which there were no schools.
So, you were saying that because they lived in hunting camps, the children, for them to have to get an education, including reading and writing and learning to participate in the modern world, it's hard to think about how that could have happened unless they were in a residence and staying in a residence.
It's impossible
comparison with the Soviet Union, which I've seen made. That was reindeer herding society, which is a bit more organized than small groups hunting in small bands. So you'd have to have many, many, many teachers following around a whole bunch of different bands, which would be just impossible. Okay, so the reason why the children in Inuvik learn to read and write is because they went to that residence.
There were two residences. There was Stringer Hall, which was the Anglican residence that I worked in, and there was Rodier Hall, which was the Roman Catholic residence. About 250 kids in each of the residences.
So here we have a story now. Of course, your memory could be selective. You've got obviously, you're trying to protect your reputation. So, still, is there any other sources that can help us kind of investigate further the Inuvik situation?
There is a lot. There are a number of
Unbelievable. Look at how disgusting this is, eh? There's an actual professor from a university here in Canada looking at hold a speaker's corner and talk, and look at the reaction from these individuals. Look at the love, the passion, look at the learning, look at the intellectual prowess.
Right here, in this National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. Are we able to access those records? So Ron cannot even access his own records about what happened in the Inuvik school at this center, which just got $20 million from the Manitoba government and is keeping these records away from the public to be able to study the residential schools. Is that correct?
Give the money back.
The money should be returned if those records are not made available for the public.
I agree. I think it has to be public. All the records have to be public, and those people that are contrary-minded and those people that are not should have access to these records so they can see what actually is in the records.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this center is under a trust deed, which is supposed to make those records available to the public. So why has it not made these records available to the public?
No one wants to stand on that issue and fight it, and the university is backing down in terms of accountability between this center and the university.
This university is a disgrace. The University of Manitoba is a disgrace. The government of Manitoba is a disgrace for giving this center $20 million when it is not allowing those records to be released to the public, which it says in its trust deed. We need those records released so we can see what Rod's pictures look like, what all the different information is about the Inuvik Springer Hole, which was a residence, which we need to study to have a full picture of what occurred at the residential schools. This area is about truth-telling. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, is truth-telling. How can we tell the truth if we don't have the records to be able to study things, to try to be able to understand what is happening with protecting the residential schools?
Truth over emotion.
I agree. My wife went to for those people that are talking, my wife went to residential school for 10 years.
So Rod's wife went to a residential school for 10 years. Which residential school did she go to, Rod?
Old Son on Siksika First Nation in Alberta.
Old Son on Siksika First Nations in Alberta. And if you can speak for her, I'm not sure if you can, what was her experience like at Old Son?
When we were very young, people asked if she went to residential school because they had never met many Aboriginal people, and so she used to say yes, and then pretty soon she started saying, no, I went to a private Anglican school, and then she got so angry with what's going on with Murray Sinclair's articles in the Free Press and all of these other things that she stopped talking about it for about 20 years, and now she's back poking people on the shoulder and saying, hey, I went to a private Anglican school.
Okay, but did she have any stories about missing children and children being murdered and children being thrown into incinerators at the residential school?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. What is your view? I just heard this earlier on. Someone came up to me and said that children were thrown into incinerators at a residential school. What's your view on that?
It's impossible because Indian Affairs paid the schools on a per capita basis, and they require quarterly reports. And if you look at the quarterly report that you have, Francis, you will see that the names of the children are there, and they had inspectors. Often they hired provincial inspectors, school inspectors, to come and inspect the schools for both education as well as living conditions. And if anything was amiss, they would have been reported.
I hear it said all the time, though, that there's a lot of records that are missing. Is that correct? Are records missing?
There are some records missing because Indian Affairs, we understand, dispose of some of the old records, and they may have copies of them. We don't really know. We just heard rumors about these things being missing without having any evidence that they are.
And I just wanted to bring up, because this is what I was having a conversation before this all started with some Aboriginal people who are a bit upset about me being here. And I was talking to them about the figure of Kevin Annett. And people should really understand the role that Kevin Annett has played. Kevin Annett is a person who was a defrocked United Church minister. He wrote a number of books and wrote a film called Unrepentant produced a film called Unrepentant in 2007. He has been saying things like, babies being burned in incinerators, torture chambers in the basements of residential school, thousands of children buried in the walls of residential schools, and there's not one piece of evidence to support what Kevin Annett is saying, and he has said many, many things which have been shown to be false. I think my own view is I think it's similar to the satanic panic that happened in the 1980s and 90s, where people had tales told to them in various emotional settings, and they absorbed those memories as their own and began to recount them because they were encouraged to do so. And that's really what's happened here, is if you have a horror story about the residential schools, you're encouraged and told, yes, you're a survival, it's wonderful to hear your story. But if you have a view that, like your wife has, where she seems to have had although it might have been strict discipline, she seems to have some things that she thinks went well there. She hasn't spoken about it for 20 years because people don't want to hear that. So you have a very unbalanced conversation that is happening because of all the intimidation that is occurring across Canada in the universities, especially. University of Manitoba, shame on you. You are a disgrace. You need to open up discussion, stop Murray Sinclair and Sean Carlton from intimidating people. Open up this center to be an actual truth-telling center where you can have people present evidence and look at the records. This is not about pursuing the truth. This is about disseminating propaganda at the behest of people like Peter Larson, who is the director of the University of Manitoba Press. Daniel Page and I went into the University of Manitoba Press offices before this event, and we confronted Peter Larson, and we asked him, why have you called me a residential school denier on social media, Peter Larson? You need to explain yourself. What was this about? And he said, I've got to think about this, and I'm sorry, I got to go away here. And then he said, are you recording this? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I'd like you to leave now, please, so to protect my private work spot. And I said, okay, we're going, but you're going to hear a lot more about this from that recording that I have, which shows the absolute embarrassment that is the University of Manitoba Press, which is not an academic press. It is a propaganda machine that is funding the Aboriginal industry that is going on here at the University of Manitoba. So we need to have a serious change in the administration of this university so that students feel free to discuss these ideas and not be intimidated by these activist professors who really are not doing their jobs in terms of the situation. Anyway, that's me on my soapbox. That's not why I'm here. I am here to facilitate this claim, which is, and I don't believe this claim. I'm on the slightly disagree mat here on the claim the graveyard at Kamloops was a hoax. I don't agree. I don't think it was a hoax because I think that people really believe, Aboriginal people really believe that there are 250 children buried there. But there's no evidence for 250 children being buried there. And in fact, the Kamloops ban has said that there are anomalies on the GPR. And people know, I have been on an actual GPR study which has shown that an anomaly can be a big boulder. You don't know what is underneath the ground. So the only evidence we have was these anomalies. And so the claim, the remains of 215 children have been found. Let's say that's the claim. That's a new claim. I'm on a neutral map. The remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Senior Residential School. I'm going to go on the strongly disagree, I'm going to go on the strongly disagree mat. There is no evidence that the remains of 215 children have been found. Those anomalies are probably puddles, animal burrows, they could be boulders, they could be anything. We need to excavate to see whether there are 215 children buried there. And in order to excavate, the Kamloops band has to do that. They got $12.1 million to excavate at that site. Now, if they did excavate and they found remains, I would go to the neutral map because I don't know what's going on there. What are those remains? Are they children? Were they people who died of, what was going on? So I would be moved by excavations. And the other thing about Kamloops is, the reason why I'm on the strongly disagree map, the reason why I just want to let people know, the people who are standing on these plants, that you shouldn't be standing on the plants. So if you want to move to the sidewalk, or you can move to this. Okay. If everyone can move to the sidewalk, then the plants will not be destroyed. Okay. So you said that everyone should move to the sidewalk.
Mary said you can stand on the plants if you're more comfortable.
You should move to the sidewalk.
Hey,
Beautiful.
you know what?
Beautiful.
You literally just got in the way of my drumming. Residential school survivors deserve to have a voice
She's
as
also throwing around
well.
other people's,
You
stuff.
don't get to
So.
come here. You don't get to come here. We can speak our voices too. Residential school survivors deserve their voices too.
Where's welfare paper banging on that thing?
Okay. So in terms of the Kamloops case, another reason to be on this show. Okay, everyone needs to move onto the sidewalk.
You need to move on the
She
sidewalk.
didn't say that
Go
about
ahead.
if he was a
I'll
white
follow
man.
you. I'll follow
Okay,
you.
let's go, girl.
Go ahead.
Let's go, girl. Come on.
She wouldn't have apologized to him if he was a white man. I'll say that right now.
All the way to the sidewalk.
I got them on the sidewalk.
You never say your story, do you? You're one of
She'll say sorry if you're from a visible minority. If you're white, not a chance. don't want you to lose this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Look at this, eh? Share this out, everybody. Share this around. I have no idea how many people are watching live right now. I hope the audio is kind of okay. Again, if I were to use a different microphone to try to get specifically right towards what's being spoken about, it might kind of also pick up too much of the drumming. So, you know, it's kind of a tough one. Yeah, she is also messing with people's
Okay, so the reason why you do this is because people are trampling the plants, and we don't want plants to be trampled. Because, you know, this is
quite the interesting crowd gathered here.
And the reason why I am on the strongly disagree, Matt, is because not one parent has said their child never came home to the Kamloops residential school. So if there are 215 children buried there, who would those children be? And that's a lot of remains to be buried clandestinely. And you can visit the Kamloops residential school, which I have twice now. You'll notice that it's very close to Kamloops. It's about a 10-minute walk from the Kamloops residential school in Kamloops. So, therefore, you know, it'd be out to be in the middle of the night. I'll hear out multiple stories about children being woken up in the middle of the night, 6-year-olds to dig their graves. That's really improbable. So, there's a lot of stories that are being,
There's another person that is messing with somebody's personal stuff. Just gnats. They're just gnats. Yeah, how can that not be stopped? She's messing with people's personal stuff?
I don't think they're
Good gosh.
I'm being very,
The
I'm going
wonderful
to put
security
in my ear, which I
Not
don't find
really
very
doing that
pleasant,
great of
to
a
be
job,
honest.
I gotta say.
I have a hearing problem already.
I can imagine
and I
University
don't
has
think
told me
that's
that
going to be very helpful for my hearing problem. Not that they care, because they believe they're right. And they're going to stop anyone from discussing anything because it's a religious belief for them. And they do not follow evidence wherever it goes. So, they you know, it's fine to be an activist, but universities are not places of activism. Universities are places of critical examination and analysis. And the University of Manitoba is failing, massively failing in its ability to discuss this issue. Because universities are not universities anymore. They're child care centers. They're nursery schools. I was at Mount Royal University yesterday, and we had some stupid human spider web exercise where all these students with orange shirts got and put themselves in a spider web thing, according to some Aboriginal creation story, which is utter nonsense. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But why is Mount Royal University promoting that kind of stuff when people don't understand basic science, they can't write an essay, they can't do basic intellectual work because of all this nonsense that's going on? But we're here at the University of Manitoba because this is one of the universities in the House of Shame. Because of this monstrosity, the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, which should not be on a university campus. It should be in an Aboriginal rights center because it doesn't study things to pursue the truth. It looks at things to disseminate propaganda. That's what it does. And it won't even release the records that Rod and his wife have provided on the Newbank school. Anyway, back to the claim. The grave area at Kamloops was a hoax. That's the claim. Now, I've already said that I'm on a slightly disagreement because I don't think people are trying to intentionally deceive for the most part. I don't think there are 215 children buried, but I don't think people truly believe that's the case because they believe the knowledge keepers believe a whole bunch of false things. They might have some true things that they are saying, but they have a lot of false things that they're saying too. So that's the first thing. However, there are some people, and I'll speak for them, they're not here today, Jaime Rubenstein and Tom Flanagan, strongly agree that is a hoax. Now why would they strongly agree that it's a hoax? And the reason why they do is because there's been constant attempts to control the information out of Kamloops. There's been constant attempts to control the information out of Kamloops. We had to start with, Sarah Bollier came between May, I think it was the 19th to the 22nd, where she did her DPR work. There was a press release that was developed probably by Ray Salafoy, who was the public relations consultant. They kept that press release. It was done on the 25th. And what occurred was they distributed amongst friendly journalists, which included Angela Starrett and Tanya Talaga. And you might be aware of Tanya Talaga. She is not a journalist, although she works for the Globe and Mail. She is an activist, and she just recently wrote a book, an embarrassing book called The Knowing. Anyway, Tanya Talaga was invited to be one of those people, but because she's such an incompetent, she wasn't checking her emails, and so she missed the communication. Anyway, they all got together, and they looked over this press release, and then they gave it as a scoop to James Peters on May 27th. So it was all planned. It was planned, and then they didn't allow any of the media to talk to the media until July 15th, when Sarah Bollier gave her presentation. And Sarah Bollier stated it was just anomalies and not remains. But we had a month and a half where people never heard anything else, and during that time, the country went crazy with a mass hysteria about the 215 graves being found, and we still are having a hard time dislodging that idea out of the public consciousness, even though the Kamloops Indian Band in 2024 said that it was anomalies, not remains. So even they admit it. But Ted Dogerson Jr., who's one of the big leaders there, I heard him say on September 2024, which is 4 months after that, that children were buried in the apple orchard. He said that, and I think he believes that. So he just thinks you should believe the knowledge keepers, and he doesn't follow evidence at all. He doesn't even seem to know what his own press release says on the website. The other thing I should mention is the role that Murray Sinclair played, which people don't know a lot about. Murray Sinclair is an embarrassment. I know people honor him and revere him, but he is not putting forward truth, even though he was the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He said in 2010 that almost every Aboriginal child in Canada has been forced to attend residential school. That's not true. Only a third of children attended residential schools, and most of them, their parents signed application forms. He also fomented the unmarked graves claim, and worse in my mind, the worst thing that he did, he also said between 15,000 and 25,000 children had died in the residential school. We only have the number of 423 in the Truth and Reconciliation report. So there's another misinformation perpetuated by Murray Sinclair. And then the worst thing that he did is that he intervened in the police investigation about Kamloops. I believe it was July 3rd when the police were questioning Sarah Bollier, because she's a GPR expert who found the anomalies. They wanted to know her methodology. He said that they were intimidating her and they were acting in this heavy-handed fashion and so on. So Murray Sinclair was part of the reason why place at Kamloops, and then now we can't seem to stop it. And we have this stupid National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which has got nothing to do with truth, and it's all about, you know, stopping people from speaking, which is what they're doing here. And you know, I might got some a little bit of hearing problems, so this is not good for my hearing, but I'm sure they're glad that I will probably have some hearing problems from this situation. But I don't care. Take away my hearing, you people, because you should not, well, you can be at a university, but you're certainly not intellectuals, and you're certainly not contributing to truth. We're here to pursue the truth, and this cannot happen in the current climate, which it's all the University of Manitoba's fault. It's completely the fault of the University of Manitoba for encouraging this activism. Yes, you can.
We're gonna leave you here. And you can spill all your hate, but we'll be back.
What, did you want to say some things about your own views?
No, we said enough.
You said enough? Well, I assume you would be on, in terms of the hoax question, you'd be on the strongly disagree map. Am I right in that? Does anyone want to see why they don't think that the graveyard at Kamloops was a hoax? You can say your piece here, and you can explain all your ideas. Right in front of the cameras and everything.
Please, come share your truth.
We want to hear your truth. We're at the quote-unquote sacred fire, which, you know, I think that's not really, I don't really agree with that. It should be the fire of truth-seeking. I'm renaming it, the fire of truth-seeking. And in order for us to have a fire of truth-seeking, we need to hold this center to account. We need those records released to the public so that people can hear about Rod Clifton's Springer Hall experience and all the other documents that relate to that. And we need that $20 million to be given back to the people of Manitoba if they're not going to release those records, because it's part of the trust deed that they are put under so that they will be shepherds of those records for the public. So it can be a place of study where people can really understand what happened at the residential schools, which I know there was abuse that happened in many schools, there was neglect that happened, there were poor conditions, there were ventilation problems. All these things were documented by Peter Bryce in 1907. But the government did, discuss this in the House of Commons. They didn't do enough, but there were some terrible conditions that existed and a high rate of deaths. So that was a problem. But that's not saying that 215 children are murdered and dumped into a grave, or 215 graves in Kamloops, or there's 215 clandestine burials in Kamloops. And the incinerated children idea, that's straight out of the mouth of Kevin Hannon, and along with other crazy things that he was saying. So there's no evidence. And the one case of the incineration that we do have was in the movie Sugarcane. It wasn't an actual incineration, it was an attempt incineration. And that was an Aboriginal mother who put her baby on a garbage burner. It wasn't anything to do with the people who worked at the school. So that got shaped by these activist filmmakers to somehow, have this kind of inference that, it was a staff at that school. All right, who wants to do Spectre's Epistemology?
I will.
Okay, Kevin Neutral, please, sir.
Okay.
What's your name?
Kent Clostrike.
Kent Clostrike. Okay, Kent. We have two rules. One is we start on the neutral. The other is you can't straddle the mats. You got to pick your mat. So, in response to the claim, the graveyard at Kamloops was a hoax, what mat would you stand on?
I am moving this way. I really appreciate the precision in your language. Hoax is a very particular thing, and it's very easy to use imprecise terms. So I think everybody is in a slightly different place in their minds. So people that believe it, you're right, that's not a hoax. Do you want me to hold it?
Sure.
Okay.
Although, except think
Oh,
about
got it. Okay. But for some people, obviously they know it's not true. So for some people in the leadership, it's a hoax. I don't think it's a coincidence that this happened in 2021, a year after the revolution in America in 2020. That timing is not a coincidence. It's been primed. You know, they were sort of waiting for this. If we pick an arbitrary number, 25 is a nice even number. If we go back 25 years, in 2000, was the political culture such that First Nations people were too afraid to bring up these bodies that everyone knew about? No, it wasn't.
Have you heard about the police investigation that happened in the 1990s about the residential schools?
Just a little bit.
Anyway, we just interviewed someone who's involved in that investigation as a task force. His name was Jerry Peters. It's part of a documentary that Simon Hergott and I are doing called Uncovering the Grave Era at Kamloops. And in their whole investigation in the 1990s, and Charlene Bello was the liaison, so they made sure that they had Aboriginal buy-in in terms, it was on criminal acts, but it was largely about sexual abuse because of the Arthur Plint case. Anyway, it was not one claim about missing children, not one claim about unmarked graves. There were 3 allegations of suspicious deaths that were made. All were investigated. All were found to be unsubstantiated. So that was in the 1990s. So what's your response to that? Does that make you even more kind of confirmed, or how would you respond?
Well, they would if they were investigated and the claims found to not be true. Well, that's a very strong thing. The other thing is that they don't want a police investigation today. They want to be in control of it, right? So give us money, we're going to do the investigation, or apparently not do the investigation. Just sit on the money, collect the money, demand more. It's literally just an attempt to find out if the bodies are there, right? So if it's been 4.5 years and there's no investigation, well, what would a person think, right?
Okay, so if let's say I'm on the strongly disagree, Matt, which I'm very familiar with the arguments about that, what do you think the best argument would be in response to that from the strongly disagree side?
So how would I start to move you over on the mats?
No. What do you think my best argument would be on the strongly disagree, Matt?
Well, I don't know. I had a friendly conversation with someone here today. My standard thing is there's a calm person on the other side, and we don't want to always say they're on the other side, but in this case they were on the other side. A calm, kind-hearted person. I could sense it in her. My standard thing is, I will buy you lunch. Please, I want to talk about this with you. If an individual, the elder lady making a claim about abuse, I'm strongly inclined to believe her, and I care about her, so we can offer care to you. But if you claim that the moon is made of cream cheese, that's not related to a possibly or probably true story of abuse that you encountered. We're literally just trying to find out if there are bodies buried in the ground in Kamloops, right?
Okay, but in terms of the hoax claim, I am saying I'm on the slightly disagree, Matt, but you're saying why? As far as I understand, let me just make sure of your argument. If it's not a hoax, why don't they just excavate, and why are they so reluctant to excavate? Is that your argument?
Yeah, exactly. And again, the lady I was talking to, she was saying, well, what does it matter if that's true? Like, I think she thinks it's trying to discredit the whole story. So we need to put forward the message, we're taking claims individually, and yes, when claims stack up, they do paint a picture. But that doesn't mean that every claim has to be accepted just because it could upset people, right? So I'm not exactly answering your question.
Yeah, we want you to. Here I am. I'm standing on the strongly disagree, Matt. I'm saying it's definitely not a hoax, and just because they don't excavate, they've got a real good reason for why they're not excavating. Do you know what that reason is? The reason is, and this is not my view, this is what the view is of the strongly disagree in response to that, is that you don't want to disturb the dead. So we don't want to disturb the dead, so therefore we're not going to excavate.
But graves are sacred to everybody. Let's talk to the anthropology department and see if there's a human culture for whom graves are not sacred. We can handle it in a gentle way. We can try to incorporate practices that won't violate certain sensitivities, but an investigation has to be done, obviously, with that claim.
And as well, the Kamloops Indian Band, and this might help you in terms of your position, they received $12.1 million to do the excavations. So if it was such a sacred ground and they didn't want to disturb the dead and so on, why are they applying for $12.1 million?
Things that make you go,
But still, I think, now I'm on the slightly disagree. The more we talk about this, I'm moving over to the neutral mat a little bit here, because I think the excavations for me really are a huge problem for the Kamloops Indian Band. And, I understand, it could have been, just to explain my position, why I kind of, maybe I'm neutral. Because what happens is they decided to do the excavations. They got $12.1 million, and then a lot of community members started expressing kind of opposition to it and so on. And that's what, because I was calling it a fraud for a while, personally. But then I looked up fraud, and I asked Brock, actually, is the fact that the Kamloops Indian Band took $12.1 million to do excavations and did not do the excavations, is that fraud? And it was a very interesting response that Brock gave. Brock said, it depends. It depends on whether they intended not to excavate when they took the money. And they might have intended to excavate, it's just that when they decide to go about trying to do it, they got all this community opposition and they do things according to consensus, and the 13 family heads were no longer on board, so they just kind of decided. But they still had $12.1 million.
So even if they believed it at the beginning, clearly they're foot dragging now, which it certainly seems like they don't believe the bodies are there. So even if they did at the beginning, time to get the money back or do the investigation.
Well, it's going to depend upon what the application form actually said, which we don't know 100% because it's redacted. But so just in terms of the street epistemology method, what kind of evidence would you need to move more towards the agree or the slightly agree?
If there were bodies found in the other excavations, like in Pine Creek in Manitoba, I think also in Brandon in Manitoba, if we had found it there, then you could think, oh, this was a pattern. Maybe there was an organized effort to try to hide the bodies that way. So that could move me.
Okay.
But I don't believe we found that, except where there was a known cemetery, which is obviously where you're going to find bodies. So that doesn't count.
Okay, so some excavations finding the remains of children, that would make you move more towards the neutral mat.
Yep.
Because you don't really know what's going on there. Now, it's true, it could be an epidemic where children died or something.
These are in the wrong.
Oh,
no, that's right. That's right.
yep,
Sorry.
slightly agree. No, I think we got it right. Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. What other things do you think should be said?
Well, we have representatives. We have representatives from the law school here opposing free speech. So we need to invite the faculty from the law school to come and give a presentation about how we shouldn't be having a kind, open discussion on a public sidewalk.
So how is the law school opposing free speech?
We have a representative from the Indigenous Law Students Association saying that you shouldn't be here on this sidewalk talking.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a representative from the law school here?
Well, not from the Indigenous Law Students Association.
From the Indigenous Law School Students Association is here?
She's
that I shouldn't be having this conversation here on this sidewalk?
Yeah, she's gone now. I invited her to a conversation and she would not engage. I just wanted a friendly conversation. So now I want to know if that's the policy of the law school at the University of Manitoba. Is that what they're teaching the students? That if you get upset, you should try to shut down free speech. So we should go and ask the law school if that's what they're teaching the students.
Also, in case people didn't hear this, which I'm really pissed, I'm incredibly pissed about this. the director of the University of Manitoba Press, he has some understanding of this, I think. They put out stuff on their public media channels saying that I was a residential school denier. University of Manitoba Press, I want your evidence for that. What are you talking about? Are you aware of my work on the Kamloops Indian Residential School? Or are you aware of my academic work on residential school denialism, the criminalization of residential school denialism? If you are not, you are a disgrace. Well, you're a disgrace anyway, because we should be having these conversations at a university, and you are intimidating people. That's what you're doing. It's an intellectual intimidation designed to stop people from asking the questions that need to be asked. And that's what universities are for. And the reason why we have all this ridiculous stuff happening with respect to the unmarked graves all across the country, the quote-unquote unmarked graves, is because the universities are massively failing. They have become activist in their orientation, and they don't allow these conversations to take place, or they make it very difficult. I tried to book 2 rooms through a professor here at the University of Manitoba, and they tried to charge my organization, the Society for Academic Freedom and Scholarship, between $2,000 and $5,000 to pay for security costs. And I said, piss off, University of Manitoba. I'm not having my organization spend its hard-fought funds to try to have some security detail for a non-existent threat that was totally non-existent, that threat. I got my eardrums damaged a little bit there with the drumming, but so what? You know, who cares? I'll be able to survive. And we showed, even in what I consider to be quite strong provocation, we just came out here and continued to discuss the ideas without, we just didn't listen. Don't back down. Don't back down from this intimidation. Keep going. Keep going, people. Students, professors, everyone at the University of Manitoba, government of Manitoba, who as well is a bit of an embarrassment. I gotta say, Wab Canoe, you are an embarrassment. You know you are. He's a political operator. And, he was implying that I was just doing things for clicks, and I was, I am doing what a professor should be doing. I have no apologies to make for what I'm doing. This is what all professors should be doing, and we've got to take it to the street. We've got to go to the street instead of the classroom because of all the indoctrination that is going on this campus. Sean Carlton and Murray Sinclair, the worst perpetrators of the indoctrination that is happening here. Okay, enough on my soapbox here. Who else wants to participate?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, on the neutral mat. So do you want to do the same claim, or do you have another claim that you like to do?
I'll do the same thing.
Okay, so the claim is the grave error at Kamloops was a hoax. Okay.
So I disagree for the same reason that you disagreed, which is that a hoax implies that it's a known and malicious cover. It's to obfuscate the truth. And I don't think people are really doing that. I don't think if you've ever heard any apologist arguments from Christian apologetics, you often hear who would die for a lie, right? When Paul and all these other apostles died. I really do, and I'm not a Christian, but I really do believe that they believe that Christ rose, right? And I think the same thing of this side over here, just here. I think they really do believe it, but the problem is that their standards of proof are just not up to snuff.
Okay. What do you think about Jaime Rubenstein? I think it's he, or maybe it's Tom Flanagan's claim about the control over information that has been going on, quite manufactured control of information that has been going on by the Kamloops Indian Band since May 25th, so 2 days before the world knew. They were actively involved in controlling the information.
I'm not entirely familiar with it, but based on that information, and this is what they should be doing as well, is based on this information that I know that you've been given to me.
Would that move you to the slightly disagree, Matt?
It's hard because I don't know if people can, like, I think people can manipulate the truth without knowing that they're manipulating the truth. I think that they can take things to support their ideology without really knowing they're doing it. It's what makes ideology so enticing and intoxicating on its extreme levels.
Yeah, and something to maybe support you is often people follow their interests.
Yeah.
And so you just, I think it's one of the terms is confirmation bias.
Yes, yeah.
So you tend to listen to the things that you agree with and not listen to the things that go against your interests.
Yeah.
It perhaps is confirmation bias that's going on.
Well, yeah, and not only that, like I think memories can be created through certain kinds of stimuli, such as well, I gave the example while I was on the way here, my friend, that my friend convinced me that there's a Star Wars character and he gave me some ridiculous name. And he's like, you remember the Star Wars character? You remember he was in this movie? And like, I'm very familiar with the Star Wars movies. But I was like, oh yeah, no, I kind of remember that guy. Yeah, so he was kind of like this. At the end of it, he's like, there's no such guy, right? But the point is, I really did believe, with my knowledge of Star Wars, that this guy existed because he also had knowledge of Star Wars. And so this is a bit of a funny analogy, but I think you can see where I'm.
And I've done that with my husband sometimes. I kind of, like, I tell him right away, but I start to encourage him to believe something, and then when he does, I say, oh, I was just kind of, because I was just showing him that this is something that can happen.
Yeah.
Like, memory is a very difficult thing, which I don't think people understand. And I'm not sure if you've heard of the satanic panic.
Yes, I've heard.
Yeah, so that was a case, and that's why people kept on saying to me early on, you're saying our elders are lying. I don't think the elders are lying. I think they've heard these stories, they've heard other people tell these stories, and if you hear them in emotional circumstances, they start to become your stories, and it's hard to separate out your stories from other people's stories.
And then you have to ask, like, what is the burden of proof then to confirm these stories? What is the burden of proof? And so, if it wasn't worded in the way where it's like a hoax, I'd probably be going on that side. Okay. Because when you have people saying it's a memory, I remember this happening. It's like, for some reason we decided that memory is suddenly infallible when it comes from certain people. I don't think that's true. I mean, we're all human. So if our memory is fallible, then we have to also corroborate this evidence with other evidence, documentation, and other people's stories do help with that, of course. That's how we do in the courts. Like, imagine if you went into a courtroom and you had the witness go up and they said their testimony, and it's like, well, that's it. We believe them because that's the testimony.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of your movement, what kind of evidence would you need to move either more towards the strongly disagree mat or more towards the neutral mat?
To make it whether or not it's I already convinced that it was a hoax.
Yeah. So if you were to think, okay, if I'm gonna think it's a hoax, what kind of information would you need to move?
I'd probably need someone very deliberately finding evidence to the contrary of what they're trying to say. So they find deliberate, if they dug up something and they said, well, there's no one here, but we're going to say there's someone here, then obviously I think I'd probably move all the way down.
So if you had, for example, emails between people saying, we should really do this so that we can get the $12.1 million or whatever.
Yeah, see again, that also kind of goes into I do believe that they really believe they need that money for certain reasons. That I don't think I think that obviously you offer $12 million, it's hard to say no. But at the same time, you can really believe you need that $12 million. If someone said, here's $12 million, think of some reasons why you might want it. I mean, you may think of some ridiculous reasons, but they're reasonable ones, you will believe it because the material incentive is so strong.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, people tend to follow their interests. And so if it's easy to convince yourself that you really should have the reason necessary to get this money.
Yeah.
And so you can see yourself kind of invent, especially if you're not really prone to critical thinking about things anyway, you're prone to going with your emotions.
Yeah. Well, and I also add on to that
it's no secret that Indigenous people do live in some pretty horrible conditions in a lot of places. And having that money offered to you, I mean, to be honest, it would be kind of dumb not to take the money when you really do need it like that badly. In a lot of there's reserves. There's no running water. There's no services around them. And even in the city, there's obviously lots of heavily densely populated. Sorry. Areas where there's a lot of high indigenous population, and they really do need the money. So I'm not surprised that when in 2005 this whole reconciliation thing came about for compensating survivors, that a lot of people took it. Because, I mean, why would you not take it if you were in residential school? And you can say that, well, and someone says, well, you were really hurt in residential schools, were you? You think back, like, oh yeah, I guess I was, like, it doesn't take very much, especially when you need money.
And so, why are you on the disagree and not on the strongly disagree?
I don't have enough evidence, I think, or enough. I haven't been presented with enough evidence to fully conclude that it was a hoax. I think that there's still room to where I can be shown something that would convince me that it was a hoax.
So things like the control over communications and so on, that goes to make you less certain?
Yeah, it would make me less certain. It would make me think it was more malicious intent, especially if we have record of people knowingly doing it, and saying, this is I know it's hard to get people having their thoughts on it, right? Saying, well, gee, I really want to cover this up, but that's the kind of thing that it's hard to find, but something similar to that where they're deliberately hiding information.
So go back to neutral, I just want to see what you think about another thing. So the claim now is the remains of 250 children have been found in the Kamloops University. Okay, so you don't think that's not the case?
I don't think that's the case at all.
Okay, so why are you on the strongly disagree?
Yeah, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself here when I said I need more evidence over here. But simply I think it's because you're proving, you're saying the claim is proven because there's no evidence that it's not proven. So that's not good enough for me. I need real evidence that there is indeed people underneath it.
Okay, and what would that evidence be?
Excavations.
Excavations at $12.1 million for it. So, why is it you think that hasn't happened?
Well, again, I think some of it is really genuine. I think they really do believe that it is sacred ground. If there are indeed children buried there, so they're inclined to believe it's sacred ground, and that disturbing it would be religiously problematic. But at the same time, I think there is again a material incentive and also there's a real material gain that would be had from not excavating and yet being able to have a reason to keep having money given to you. If you say, well, we don't quite have the resources yet, we need more resources, right? And that may come in the form of consulting, lots and lots of consulting, and excavation, but not easy either. It does cost a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Pine Creek, I'm not sure if you were familiar with the Pine Creek case.
Is that what it was here?
Yeah,
I believe they didn't find anything there.
No, it's in a church basement. The knowledge keepers had said that children were buried in the church basement. They took a GPR machine. They found that there were 14 anomalies that looked like they would be remains on the GPR. They did a forensic excavation, so they did the whole sifting of things and everything, and they found that there were rocks where the anomalies were.
Yeah, so that sort of shows that there is a good likelihood that any of the ground penetrating radar will just show anomalies which are just not living. Or even if they were living, they may be easily animals, right? But that's not to say that, of course, there can't be animals there, which is why, there's such a kerfuffle going on. There is.
Anything else you think should be said?
I really think that people need to listen to each other and listen to each side of the conversation, because you're not going to get the information. You're not going to get the truth if you only listen to one side all the time, no matter what, everyone needs to break out of their echo chambers and start talking to people who disagree.
What do you think about this method, spectrum street epistemology, for trying to facilitate these kinds of discussions?
I think it's excellent. I've been following Peter Pagoda for a while. I love that book that you showed earlier. I read it. My mother gave it to me for my birthday, actually. And it was, but I think it's an excellent way to it's what Socrates said, straight up. He went around and he went all around that. How do you know what you know, and why do you know that? Right? That is the way philosophy is done. That is the way conversations are had, and that's the way we can find the truth.
Okay, well, University of Manitoba, if you're listening to this, you need to start the spectrum street epistemology on your campus, and you need to stop being so obstructionist. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, other people who want to, okay, on the neutral. Is there a claim you'd like to discuss, or the same claim? Okay, so the claim is the grave error at Kamloops was a hoax. Okay, so you're on the slightly agree that. Why are you on the slightly agree?
The whole thing hijacked various purposes.
Okay, so you argue that you believe that there are some bodies in the apple, or
Yeah, I don't know if I was
but you think it's slightly a hoax because it's been taken over by various interests?
Yeah, I think it's now used for an agenda, pushing ideas.
Okay. Why do you think there are some bodies buried in the Kamloops apple?
Again, I'm not an expert, but I think they found other bodies, and then if you have a school, especially back then, you're going to have
Just because they're kind of discussing the same topic there with the other gentleman, I kind of want to hear what CTV is asking some of the individuals here. I'm really curious if CTV is going to try to get an interview with Francis.
Okay, the first question is always easiest. Can I get your first and last name?
Callum Young T.
Can you spell that for me, Callum?
C-A-L-L-U-M, and Young, T-H-I-E-S.
Okay. You don't have to lean into the mic.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Callum, what brought you to the university here today, particularly this demonstration?
Well, I saw that there was an event going on. I saw a lot of kerfuffle on the internet about a demonstration that was going to be held against Francis Whittleson, and I wanted to go see what it was. I'm actually from University of Winnipeg, so and I wasn't able to attend her next street epistemology tomorrow. So I decided to come down today and get some information and see what people are talking about, like what's going on.
And what did you learn here today?
Well, I learned that there's clearly two sides to this, but there's actually there's two dogmatic sides, but there are many nuanced sides to this conversation. I don't think you necessarily have to be on one side or the other to have this to make this big bold statement that this must be the case. I think there's actually a lot of room for conversation, and I think the spectrum street epistemology really speaks to that.
And the fact that Francis wasn't able to have what she wanted to have in terms of an actual event. How do you feel about that?
I feel like she should have been able to have the event that she wanted to have, and I do find it pretty disappointing on part of the U of M that they wanted to charge her a $2,000 to $5,000 fee. This was a percentage estimation of what they wanted to charge her, and I just think we should be able to have speakers out of the campus. Period. Doesn't matter what they're talking about. There needs to be speakers who are actually talking about something that people seem to be very afraid to talk about. And I think the things that we're most afraid of to talk about are things we need to talk about most.
And when it comes to residential schools and unmarked graves, where do you lie in that conversation?
Well, again, I know it's a dangerous topic to answer, and that was actually I think it's somewhat exemplified by the opposition here today. That's from some of the groups, but I'm honestly not convinced 100% either way. I need more evidence, but that goes for both sides. I'm not convinced that it is a hoax, that is a malicious cover-up, but I'm also not convinced that there are, in fact, with certainty, bodies that exist. I do think we need to put in some more work and more evidence and work with Indigenous communities in order to get to the bottom of this.
Okay, I think that's all my questions for you. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel is important about the topic for today's event?
It's really good free speech is something that we really need to value in this country, and I think that comes from both sides, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're talking about if you're opposed to this to the claim that Buddhism makes, make the claim, make the argument, present the evidence, and the same should be demanded of Buddhists as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wasn't too worried.
No, that was good stuff, Cal. All right, a little watch the watchers kind of thing there, I guess. See if any of that ends up on your 6 o'clock news.
I'm going to start really strong in the brain. Let's save some time here.
Okay, take the time. Okay, and this is in response to the claim. You're on the strong.
And my reason for believing that is June 4th, a week after the announcement, said there's no mass graves. She clarified there's supposed to be separate graves. Okay. A month later, she filed a resolution at AFN, Resolution 1/2021, saying that a mass grave of deceased children has been found, and that more mass graves are to be found. Well, that's a contradiction, and I think that's where the hoax really is.
Okay, so that I thank you so much for raising that piece of evidence, because I'd actually kind of forgotten about that situation, and I'm wondering about my own kind of, because I moved to the neutral. I'm definitely now on the neutral on this question.
Okay,
now
now,
that piece of information.
for another bit, actually,
Okay.
within a day after the 27/2021 announcement, a group of lawyers filed a complaint with the ICC, International Criminal Court, accusing Canada of genocide, of concealing the graves, a mass grave that is, of deceased children, and that more mass graves have been found. Not only that, they accuse the RCMP, the Government of Canada, and the Vatican, I kid you not, of trying to conceal this truth, and trying to conceal the graves.
Yeah, I was worried about that, but in terms of that Casimir motion, that was July. It was right. It was like July 6th or something.
Yeah. So I think 7th and 8th. It was a special meeting of the AFN.
So in terms of the person who would be like more over towards this, what do you think would be the best argument that they would have for saying that that's not really an indication of a hoax?
Why did Rose Casimir contradict herself that way? She publicly announces to the nation that there is no mass graves, and then she passes a resolution with the FN saying there are mass graves. I don't know, how do you explain that?
Perhaps, I'm just thinking of the best argument that can be made about that. It's just like not really being very specific with your language. Right? Like that kind of happened a bit, and John Carlton, who I've mentioned many times, who is an embarrassment to the University of Manitoba.
No arguing here.
That guy, he kind of slips in and out of this language all the time, right? Like unmarked graves, mass grave, like it's like, and in fact he even talks. So I'm not sure if you know this or not, but there are records of 49 deaths associated with the Kamloops Southwest deaths.
I thought it was 51 actually.
It's a double counting, so it's 49. So 49 means of children who were associated, not like 25 didn't die in school, they died in hospitals, they died in their home communities and so on. But Carlton, for example, confuses that situation with the Kamloops clandestine burial apple orchard. So maybe he's being disingenuous or not. But
can't
So,
just show
yeah, let's
confidence.
say that Roseanne Casimir, she's just not very specific with her language, and she doesn't think about these things very much. And so she just sort of rattles off this thing, and she's not intending to do that. She's just confused.
But isn't that being casual about a blood libel against Canada?
It is, but it's not necessarily a hoax.
I think it is.
So if you heard that somehow some documents came out, like her diary or something like that, where showed that she was generally confused about the situation, would that get you to move to the agreed position? No? Why not?
I want to see excavation. I want to see the criminal evidence. I'll remind the audience that unlawful burial is a crime in Canada. So if there's any substance to the truth that there are 215 children buried somewhere, unlawfully buried, police have a duty to investigate. Now, the band actually approached the police and told them passionate about this. They did not present the police with any forensic evidence, that is, actual remains found. There's no open graves of any bodies anywhere for the police to see. They also don't have a single name of anyone reported missing from the school. Who are these children? So the police have no evidence to actually get a warrant to dig up the ground.
And as well, you know about Murray Sinclair. Do you hear about Murray Sinclair?
Sorry? Oh, the interference?
Yeah, he interfered with the police investigation.
I don't buy that.
No, why not?
There was no police investigation. Can't be. We have no grounds to proceed.
Well, do you think that because of the types of doubts and everything, and all the kinds of people being really worried about it, like in another context, you might have seen them move on the issue.
I understand that they have a public relations commitment clarified to the public, but in terms of criminal investigation, they have been presenting any evidence to receive the warrant at any time.
Yeah, and it's true. They haven't been very good in terms of clarifying to the public that there really are no grounds for them to proceed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's because of presumably the kinds of political pressure that have put on.
Quite possibly, the whole issue is radioactive, as we saw earlier.
Well, we stood our ground and we argued it out, and here we are, still standing. No one got hauled away in handcuffs or anything like that. So no one got hit. Really, like someone got hit with a drum instrument.
And I would suggest to these safety inspectors, or in fact I asked one, don't they have a sound meter to count how many decibels? Because there is a certain level where it's going to damage the hearing.
I think that was out in my ear.
And yeah, that's assaulted me. And let's not that guy.
But you know, I think it was borderline. See, the thing is, they didn't want to ask. Like, we wanted to have this take place. We didn't want, like, within reason. You know, it was everyone was kind of not particularly. They didn't go crazy. It was kind of controlled. It was kind of controlled opposition.
Yeah.
So it was all good.
My response
Yeah,
is it's a
I
lot.
think it went pretty well.
And if it wants.
Anything else you think should be said?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else wants to participate? Okay. So we have two rules the spectrums need to put us all with you. One is we start on the neutral.
Okay.
The other is you can't straddle the maps.
Okay.
You gotta pick your map.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go get you on the neutral.
Okay.
Do you have a claim that you would like to investigate?
Viewing hate against residential school survivors. I am a fourth-generation residential school
Okay, so the claim is Francis Widdowson is spewing hate against residential school survivors. Okay, so where would you be on that claim?
I'd be strongly.
Okay, you're going to be on strongly agree?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be on strongly disagree.
Okay.
I wish I had my gear. I have some great things for this.
Okay.
They are, Peter Boghossian does this, but I'm not very prepared today for the chaos. What you do is you write down on this board what you think the best argument of the opposition would be in response. But we don't have that.
Yeah.
But so let's just do it this kind of regular. Why do you think that I am spewing hate against residential school survivors?
The reason I think it is watching the live in the beginning when you first came in here before I walked into class is that there is history along with Indigenous residential schools and graves that were found first in British Columbia, then so on and so forth. My own community has unmarked graves in it. The fact that you're trying to spew that this hate and against residential school survivors really makes me mad, but in a respectful way to you, because the seven sacred teachings taught me to value your opinion, taught me to love you, taught me to respect you and your decisions. And I want to know and I want to hear you on why you think these claims are not real.
Okay, so there's two issues here. One is the claims that I make about the residential schools. The other one is whether these claims are hateful. So do you have a preference? Do you want to pursue one of those or another?
Let's try to pursue them both.
Okay, so let's do the claim before we get into the hate, because one depends on the other.
It does, yeah.
If you kind of understand why I would think the things that I do, you might not think it was hate in the end. So okay, so I'm just trying to think about the claim that we're looking at, which is, so my area is the Kamloops case.
Okay.
So I would argue that I strongly disagree that the remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in the apple orchard.
Okay.
Is that the kind of claim you're talking about?
Yes.
And I would be on the strongly disagree, which is the remains of 215 children have been found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. I strongly disagree that that's the case. And the reason for that is because ground penetrating radar and the views of the knowledge keepers are the only pieces of evidence that we have for the remains of 215 children being found. And the Kamloops Indian Band said in 2024 that it was anomalies on the GPR, not remains. So they changed the wording from remains to not. So they aren't even really arguing that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's my view.
Okay. I respect your view. I really do. But at the same time, our knowledge keepers, my knowledge keepers, strongly believe, and there's spirits that walk around, the lost children of the 250 on the Kamloops ground who don't know their way home because of what happened within the residential schools there. It's a very dark chapter within Canadian history, within Indigenous people, when we look back at colonization within the residential schools and the way they were designed to kill the Indian and the child. I strongly believe that those remains are there, and there's a reason why they brought out the penetrating sonar there, and they won't bring them back up because it's disrespectful to those children who passed away from sickness.
Okay, so, and this is the method of shape. This is Peter Boghossian. I just want what you try to do when you're so you don't mischaracterize someone's views. You try to repeat back to them what you think that their arguments are. So one of the arguments I thought I heard was because the knowledge keepers believe that there's 215 children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, that's why you believe that there are children buried there.
Yes, I believe that the knowledge keepers don't lie. The knowledge keepers are one of the strongest people within the Indigenous community. They carry knowledge from past ancestors going way back to residential school.
Okay. Is it possible for a knowledge keeper to misremember things?
No.
Never?
Never.
So if a knowledge keeper says something, whatever it is, you must believe it because they're never wrong.
No. I believe that the knowledge keepers are there for a reason, and that's why the Creator gave them those gifts. And I do believe they're in the right spot to say what they believe, and with the lost 250 of the residential school kids in Kamloops.
Okay, what happens if you have knowledge keepers who are in disagreement about, let's say you had one knowledge keeper who said that they believed that there were 215 children buried there, and another knowledge keeper said, no, I don't believe that's the case. What would happen then?
There's disagreements in everyday life, but at the same time, the knowledge keepers of Kamloops versus knowledge keepers of the Long Plains First Nations have different views on the way they see things. And I will always stand by the knowledge keepers of Kamloops.
Okay, now, so we looked at my view as to why I don't believe there's 250 children buried there. Do you think that that's hateful for me to believe that?
Yes, in a way it is hateful, but there's also a way of you saying it. I believe that words go a long way with Indigenous people, and I'll always respect your views on residential schools, but I'll always respectfully disagree with you.
Okay, but it's about whether they're hateful. Like, I'm not quite sure. Like, if I am giving these reasons to you, is there a way I can say that which would make you say that's not hateful, and a way I would say that would make you say it is hateful? I'm just trying to figure out, because I don't want to sound hateful.
No, of course. The way you present, the way you say that there is no physical remains in the ground is the way of a Muniash person. Muniash in Ojibwe means white. And white Muniash people like yourself have your views and the way you guys were raised versus the way Indigenous people were raised.
Okay, but is the way, I think you said white, like is that the way that a white person characterizes, does that got something to do with hate, or is it just a different viewpoint?
It's a different viewpoint.
But in terms of hate, how does it become hate?
It becomes hate when you come onto a university campus, when the university tells you no, and wait till November. Because of right now, this is the week of to remember residential school survivors. There's always a time and place.
But the main reason was that the charging of $2,000 to $5,000. No, they wanted to charge my organization between $2,000 and $5,000. And my own perspective was, I should really be here in Truth and Reconciliation Week because the university is not facilitating an intellectual discussion about the residential schools. That was my own position. If we're going to talk about truth, we need to have perspectives which have contrary viewpoints. Otherwise, it's just you're hearing the same position over and over again.
I agree with you, but at the same time I disagree because this is a subject where residential school survivors were hurt the most, and we're talking about the sexual abuse, the neglect, and the way that the Christianity made the Indigenous residential school.
So in terms of the Kamloops case, if an Aboriginal person heard that 215 children were buried clandestinely in the apple orchard, do you think that that would be upsetting and hurtful to them?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be helpful to sort of say that there's a little bit of uncertainty about it?
No.
And why is that?
Because the proof is there when they did the sonar and the knowledge keepers came out.
Okay, do you think that ground penetrating radar provides evidence of remains?
In a way it does, yes. It doesn't show the whole picture, it'll only show what the anomaly is there. Nobody wants to unbury a child that was sitting there for how many years at that Kamloops residential school.
Yeah, but if we have the anomalies could be rocks or animal burrows, like that's a very, very possible scenario with ground penetrating radar.
It is, but at the same time the anomalies show where the 215, and that's where they counted out how many children were buried under there. There's no possible way for 250 animals to be buried underneath, right behind a residential school.
Okay, but and the reason why you think there's 215 is because the knowledge keepers have said that that's the case.
Yes.
So, what about the fact that no one was really saying the number 215 until we had the ground penetrating radar find the anomalies of 250?
Because the knowledge keepers went to Chiefing Council where they came from, and they believed, and they took time to go into a ceremony and ask Creator for guidance on finding these children and to bring them home.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. So this is kind of the interesting thing about street epistemology is you reach points where we're trying to get. So from what I understand, you reach points where it becomes harder and harder to kind of figure out how we can kind of figure out on evidence. So what evidence would result in you being less certain than your strongly agreed position?
Nothing.
So the evidence is not going to change your mind. So let's say they did do excavations and they found that there were no remains there. Would that change your position?
Maybe.
Okay.
But not strongly, because nobody would want to excavate where 215 children remain. It's disrespectful.
So do you know that in I think it was January 2022, the 13 family heads decided that they would exhume the children's bodies so that those bodies would be sent home.
I did not hear about that.
Yeah, that was in the Fifth Estate program on February 2022.
Okay.
So why would they do that if they felt that there should be no disturbing of remains?
I disagree with that family who wants to do it, because they want to bring home their children, their ancestral children. But it shouldn't be that way. It should just be leave them there, do a ceremony to bring them home, guide them, and let the elders who survived that residential school in Kamloops do it, because that's the only I believe that's the only way of bringing them back to Creator.
Okay. So in terms of our conversation that we've had, and so do you understand my position? What my position is?
Yeah, I do.
So just so that because I'd like to kind of respond if it's inaccurate, but what do you think my position is on this claim?
I think you have your position, and you will stand in it, and you'll fight for what you believe in the ways that you were raised to believe residential schools, and nobody will ever change their minds on it, not even Indigenous people.
But if we did do excavations in that area and remains were found, do you think that I would change my position?
I would hope so.
I would definitely move. I would move to the neutral position, because that would be the evidence that I would say, now we've got a whole new thing happening here and I don't know what's going on there. I'd have to start doing the forensics and everything on it. So do you think that I'm being truthful when I say that?
Unfortunately.
You don't think I would move if there were excavations done and the remains were found?
I don't believe if they found remains there, I don't believe you change your position. Because in your heart, it's full of hate. You could tell by just this audience here, you could tell your heart is full of hate.
How do you know?
Don't want to believe, and you're making up hoaxes like this. You know, there's so many of our people that have been buried, that have been murdered by priests, nuns, you name it. They've been murdered. They have people that have found graves, and you will not change your heart. He won't change his heart, because you guys believe in a system where your heart is corrupted, your heart is broken. Our hearts are broken. Every human being that's standing here has a broken heart. We see our people being drug addicts. We see Your people,
My people?
all drug addicts. All people are
I'm
drug
Canadian,
addicts.
man.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not a Canadian. Did I say you were?
Well, no, you're going different people. Like there's
Everyone,
different peoples
every
here.
nationality. Okay, I'm talking about nationalities.
Okay, but I just want to
But
get back to the
our
hate.
nationality has been targeted the most
Okay, but I want to
in
get to
this
the
country.
hate. Like this has been sort of said is that because I argue that there's no evidence for the remains of children being found at Kamloops, that's a hateful statement. People are saying that. Is that what you would claim?
What? That you're being
me-
hateful?
Yeah, if I say that there's no evidence for...
Nobody
there-
wants to dig it up. Is anyone digging it up?
Well,
Did you go dig it up?
there were $12.1 million that were allocated to dig up that area.
Well, I don't know what these politicians are doing. I'm
No,
not a part of politics.
It's the Kamloops Indian Band. It's
Okay,
said it was
well,
gonna
I
do.
believe it's true. I believe it's true. I believe they're hiding and covering shit up. I believe they're covering it up.
I don't know
There's a
the
cover
reason.
up. It's a cover up.
Like the
So the
Kamloops
Cat,
band
the,
covering
yeah,
up?
the Catholicism Catholic Church is covering up their asses. They don't want their priests known as pedophiles, rapists, murderers. They don't want that
But
exposed.
why wouldn't the Kamloops Indian Band want to figure that out? Don't they want to hold
Because
the
maybe-
perpetrators to account?
Of course they do, but what are you
How
gonna
are
do
they
when
gonna
they
do-
have their own people suffering for other things? They got other priorities right now.
But
You
they
know- you
got
understand?
$12.1 million to figure it out.
Well, that doesn't matter. Money don't matter.
But if they wanted to figure it out, they have the money to figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe
And
they
they
will
don't do
get
it.
to, maybe they will get to that.
Well,
But
it's supposed to be
right
done
now
between
they
2021 and 2023.
well, I can't explain for them.
Okay.
All I can explain is that your heart's broken. Your heart's broken,
Okay, but
and we have to learn.
why
to
do you
just-
think that my heart's broken?
I don't know you.
But you
How
said
can
it
I-
was. You
It
said
is.
my
It
heart-
is. Every human being has a broken heart. Don't you have a broken heart?
No, I don't.
Have you
I don't
ever
have a
have you
broken
ever
heart.
had something
I love you,
happen to you,
I mean, isn't that just the
traumatizing
idea of
to
original sin?
you? Huh?
Isn't that the idea of original sin?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So-
It's all original sin. It's all
So,
we got
so
hate.
you do agree with some Catholic things.
No, I
Not
don't.
all- but not all of it.
Well, not all of it. Not what's going on in the Catholicism
Okay.
thing today. I don't believe. I'm not a Catholic. I believe in Jesus Christ. I read my Bible every day. I talk about the Lord every day. I smoke. I'm struggling. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect human being, but I'm doing the best I can for my family. I got 9 children. I got a wife and 9 children. You know, I do the best I can. I'm sober. I'm not drunk. I'm not a drunkard. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not anything like that. But what I'm saying is, if they got the money for that, then they'll eventually get to digging it up, right? So
Not necessarily.
how do you know?
Well, I don't, but if they haven't done it in 4 years and they got the money to do it between 2021 and 2023,
Maybe they're looking
It
after
seems
the people. Maybe
it's-
they're looking after
yeah,
the
but they're-
people that
but if they
are
think it's a
alive right now.
priority, like they hold those nuns and priests to account for what they've done, which I would have thought they would want to do.
How many priests have gone to jail?
Well, if they found remains, then that could be a huge piece of evidence to make their case.
Well, then this is good for you pushing them to do something about it. Isn't
I
it?
am pushing them to do
Okay,
something
well,
about it
then
because
that's
we want to
good.
get to the
That's good.
truth. And
That's
that's the only
good.
way we're
As
going to get to
long
the
as-
truth.
as
But
long
do you
as-
think that that's for me saying we should really get to the truth of this matter? Do you think that's hateful?
No, but I'm just saying, like, you're coming across as hateful, like
Am I? Well,
yeah,
how
you
so?
are. Well, you started here a protest earlier, and
No,
it
I
seems
just
like
gave my
we couldn't even
spectrum
get
to
through
the
here. We're dropping someone
Okay,
off,
I
and we
was
couldn't even get through,
gonna,
so we
I
came
got
to
a
find out.
professor to book some rooms for me, or try to book rooms for me. They were going to charge my organization between $2,000 and $5,000 to do it, and my organization doesn't have that kind of money. So I said, well, I'm going to come in and do the spectrum sheet epistemology instead.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it seems to me to be fitting because this is about the truth-telling, and we're only getting the views of Sean Carlton and Murray Sinclair here, and we need other views for people to be able to truly communicate.
Including yours.
And we're not in, and like I'm happy to have people, everyone communicate.
I want to quote something from late Murray Sinclair. Late Murray Sinclair said it's not up to the indigenous people to teach the white people residential schools and what happened. It's up for the indigenous people to heal from it and learn from it and change it. I'm not here today to tell you to try to educate you. I'm here to stand alongside my late grandfather who passed away recently, but went through the residential school system. And I do believe that you can change if there is hard proof, but also want to quote Charlie Kirk. In the Bible verses, Mrs. Kirk said that when Jesus got hanged on the cross, he said, forgive them, Lord, for they don't know what they do.
Exactly.
And I'm here today to tell you that I forgive you from whatever hate that you have in your heart, and to always go with it in a respectful way.
But why do you think I have hate in my heart? I don't understand. I'm a professor.
Yeah,
I'm very depressed about the University of Manitoba because I don't think it's doing its academic duty. And so I want to help the universities, and that's why I'm here. I don't see that that's got anything to do with hate.
But it is.
How so?
You don't realize what you're saying these graves are a hoax. Come on, like you have no evidence. But you don't have any evidence to even put that on there as a.
I'm saying some people are saying I don't think it's a hoax, and I was explained because I don't think people are intentionally trying to mislead people in the most part. There might be the odd person who's doing it, but I don't think that's the major dynamic that's going on.
Yeah.
So, but some people are saying it is a hoax.
Indigenous people are saying that's a hoax.
Some are saying that it's a hoax, and some non-Indigenous people are saying it's a hoax.
Yeah, just like the Queen coming here, stealing some kids and taking them in Charles.
Yeah, so this is the at the Kamloops University, the Queen abducting 10 children claim.
Yeah.
So do
I
you
heard
think
that? I heard about that.
Billy
I don't know
Coons.
nothing about it. Like I can't speak on that.
Well,
like, I wasn't there. I didn't see
The
that.
Queen wasn't in Kamloops in 1964, so it would have been hard for her to abduct the children.
Well, I wasn't there.
But this is the kind of claim that's being made. So that's what we do at the university is we look at the evidence.
I'm not in university. I went to grade 5. That's all I went to grade 5.
You're here and you're arguing your points.
Yeah. Well, I believe it's true. I believe it's true.
That
the children are buried there. There's some children that didn't make it home.
And now why do you believe that?
They might have been adopted out. They might have been murdered. They might have been killed because they found some in Saugeen, some graves in Saugeen.
But in terms of Kamloops, why do you believe that children are buried in the orchard of the Kamloops residential?
I believe is because they had something on the news where they said the Queen took 10 kids and one guy who was supposed to testify against them ended up going, he died before they even got to Billy Coons.
Yeah, but
and there's people who are from Manitoba that were in that residential school, but I mean, for my family, I can't say anything about it because my aunt said that there was nothing bad that happened to her there. Like, people were nice to her, like the nuns were nice to her, but I think some people did have it hard to where they were being raped and having kids and
by priests.
The sexual abuse, that was documented. There's a task force that was investigating this in the 1990s in British Columbia. So there is evidence of sexual abuse. What I'm talking about is the remains of 250 children in Kamloops, whether that got any evidence.
Wasn't there evidence found on some paper that saying there was bodies found there and they did dig?
No, it was, there's no excavations that have taken place there, and it's GPR, it's the ground penetrating radar, that's the anomalies on that. But if you know ground penetrating radar, and I've been on, I've done work with GPR people, an anomaly is just going to be a boulder. It can be an animal burrow. It's not clear what is beneath the soil when you have an anomaly.
Well, why don't they dig to try to find?
Well, this is what people say.
Because they're saying some people didn't make it home and some kids didn't make it home. Like, a lot of, I gotta say, for a lot of residential school survivors came out mean to where some of us as their children were denied, and people were mean to us growing up. People treated us like garbage. Like, I had my family come here and they're causing chaos. And then I'm wondering why
are they causing chaos when, you know, they're just as mean as anybody else, you know? Like, this meanness needs to stop in this residential school. For you lost your job because you did something, or you said something which offended some people that were being racial, you know? It's like, people are always being racially profiled. And this, you know, profiling and saying, oh, you're lying. How do you know as a person that they're lying about that, you know?
How do you know it's a hoax?
Yeah, how do you know it's a hoax?
I don't think it's a hoax.
It's not a hoax.
Well, then
like,
why would
for
you put a
some,
sign up like
I
that?
know that's hurtful.
It's a question mark.
But I mean, some of us, like,
A lot of people are saying it's a
live with
hoax.
these people,
A lot of
and
people
some of
say
them
it's a
cried
hoax.
all
Are
the
those
time.
people saying
And
it's
there's
a
some
hoax?
sitting on the
Where are they
corner.
saying-
I
they're
met
not
this
here.
There were a couple of people
We're
saying-
taking your
I
word
met
for
this
it.
77-year-old lady. She has no family. She sits on the corner in St. Boniface, and she can't find any of her family. Like, she's just by
she was in
herself, and she
residential
was in residential school. I should have brought her here for her
But
to
this is a
say.
different question than about the Kamloops situation, which is
You're
been.
just mad because you lost your job, but
No,
everybody
I'm
wants
not-
to leave
well,
now,
I'm
and
not
that
happy.
guy wants to close it down.
I'm not happy about
And
losing
you're
my
just
job.
causing more hate towards everybody because
No,
we do get
no, we
treated
had
like
great-
garbage.
No, we had a great.
And I've seen you guys
No,
like
no,
fighting
see-
on
see,
the
great
videos.
session.
It's causing
See-
more hate.
see,
This
what
No,
you're
hate
doing
no,
needs
we're
to stop.
talking. We're discussing
Okay,
things.
Yeah, it
well,
looked like you guys were ready to go at each other on the videos I was watching. So I'll come running here.
Believe everything on TV.
So,
We had a
what
great,
I'm
great
saying
situation.
is,
All I'm saying is, I appreciate everything that you're saying. I don't have any,
But
I
some
seriously
people
do not
don't
have hate in my
appreciate what
heart.
you're doing.
I know, but we're at a university. Universities are about truth seeking and following
Exactly. But
evidence.
you're just mad because you lost your
No,
job.
I'm not. I'm not happy about. I'm not happy about losing my job. No, I'm not. But
You
that's
gotta
got
watch
nothing-
what you say.
it's got
You know, it's
nothing to
hurting
do
people.
with why I'm
People are
here.
hurting now.
I'm
I can
here
have
to
people
defend the
homeless on street.
universities. If we don't
Our
save our
people are homeless on the
universities,
street.
it's over.
You need to go help somebody, you know.
We
instead
need to help
trying
the University of
cause all this
Manitoba.
chaos.
University of Manitoba is a complete disaster, and it needs a serious kick in the butt, and that's what I'm doing. I'm kicking it in the butt.
But you're kicking us in
But
the
you're
butt.
No,
saying
I'm not.
you're-
I'm not. You guys,
You're-
people
you're-
think
you're-
that,
you're-
and if they're wrong, they should change their minds.
look, you're saying
But
the
you're saying
university
they're lying.
needs, you're
Some
doing it to
people
the universities,
probably did get-
but you're doing
you
it
know?
to Native people by saying it's
Well,
all a
I-
lie.
I-
Like, come
I'm
on.
not saying it's
think
all a
about,
lie.
think about what you're talking about and
I'm saying
examine.
it's a
The
clean
Bible
message.
says, examine your heart.
I have examined my heart.
No, you haven't,
I
because
have.
obviously
I
you
have
have hate in your
no,
heart.
I'm trying to discuss this language.
We gotta go anyways. They're trying to close
I
us
really
down.
appreciate
Yeah.
you guys coming by. I think it's great.
But follow your heart, and that is hurting people in the heart. You know.
But it's good people are saying, no, you guys.
Some people
This
did
is what
have it
people are
hard.
saying.
Some people didn't have it hard.
Anyway, what time are we looking at here?
10 to 3.
Okay, am I still going here? All right, I think we've had a pretty good event here today. I really appreciate everyone that came. We had a little bit of, clash of things, but everyone kind of calmed down, and we heard some great things. We heard some true positions where people were saying, this is what I believe, and they're explaining why they believe that. And I think we did understand a lot, which is knowledge keepers are very important to some people, the views of knowledge keepers. Whereas some people don't think knowledge keepers' views should be just taken as evidence. You need to have corroborating evidence. It can't just accept the knowledge keepers. So anyway, we're going to be at the University of Winnipeg tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central. And the claim is residential school denialism is a barrier to reconciliation. Because Murray Sinclair is going to be on some program where he's going to be arguing that. And I'd like to counter his claims or have people who support those claims. So thank you very much, everyone who came out. I think we've had some pretty good discussions.
Good music.
I was thinking the same.
Francis, my name's Chris Reed. I work for APTN. I'm wondering if we could grab you for a quick interview. I don't know if they'll let us, but maybe we could step around the back of the building.
I think we can do it here.
Oh, yeah.
It's just you can't step on the plants.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
Okay, in response to some of the comments, now of course I think I'm going to maybe stick around and try to get a word with Frances myself, although I've had her on many times. But wouldn't mind. I think we're going to go check out the APTN interview though. And to the person asking, is Frances with Winnipeg Alternative Media? No. No. No, she's a professor from Alberta.
Okay, sidebar. Oh, we can be on the maps if you want.
Yeah.
But do you believe it's a hoax?
No, that's a very good question.
Okay, so
Who is to say that you're lying? What are you saying?
Well, that's
What is your
exactly
truth?
it. There is no such thing as your truth.
So what is the
I
truth?
believe there is no truth.
If you're not debating it, you're not saying that it's a hoax. What's the
Can
point?
you please not? Like, really?
Public sidewalk is exactly why I'm here. I have been filming free speech all day. I ain't stopping for nobody.
I'm not.
Just step out of the frame.
I don't have to film you, but I mean, if you're involved in the conversation, you get on or whatever.
Deliberately trying to say like,
What's the point of this?
well, it goes back to what
To
I.
come here and say, oh, well, we want to know what your opinion on it. Is it a hoax or is it not a hoax? But then come here and say, oh, but I don't think it's a hoax.
That's why in Portland State he got pushed out of Portland State, but you're discussing ideas, and he was alarmed by the fact that people can't seem to discuss the evidence for their claims. So it's basically a Socratic method, which was developed in the ancient Greece, where you just try to get people to explain their position. You ask them questions about why they believe the things that they do, and you see if they can recalibrate their position if they're presented with new evidence.
And why do that here now?
Because the University of Manitoba is in serious trouble and has been captured by indigenization and decolonization activists who are basically controlling the university and preventing a wide variety of ideas from being expressed in the residential
ceremonies, and they're kind of acknowledging the tragedy of residential schools. Do you feel you picked the right time to come here and look at this issue?
Definitely. This was the time to be here because I do agree with the statement that we need to have truth before we can have reconciliation. But what is meant by truth at the University of Manitoba is not what most people think truth is, which is trying to have an accurate understanding of reality. And what's going on is not an accurate understanding of reality, because places like the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, they are keeping the records secret here, and those records need to be accessible to the public so we can have the full picture about the residential schools, and that's not happening. And we need to change things, and so I'm here specifically in this week to say, University of Manitoba, you need to become an academic institution, and they are not doing this, and they need to have open discussion and stop calling people like me a residential school denier, which is what the University of Manitoba Press did in its materials. And I had Daniel Page and I, who's my videographer, we had a big confrontation before this event with the director for the University of Manitoba Press.
Is that Daniel Page over there?
Yes.
How concerned is he about what this might do to his career, being involved in this here today?
I think he's willing to risk it because he thinks it's really important to fight for academic freedom in universities.
Well, I heard what you were saying about the satanic panic of the 80s, and I noticed in your essay that you referenced that. Can you kind of derive the comparison you make between the satanic panic and what we're seeing with the residential school?
Yeah, it's basically he's been telling a lot of tales since the 90s, and he was doing healing circles with people in Vancouver, and a number of people, Billy Coombs being one of them, were sort of taken under his wing, and a lot of really highly improbable stories started to emerge, one of them being that Queen Elizabeth II abducted 10 children from the Kamloops Indian Residential School in 1964, when Queen Elizabeth wasn't even in Kamloops, and even if she were, it'd be very hard for a queen to abduct 10 children. Those kinds of stories, babies being incinerated, bodies being buried in church, in residential school walls, all these kinds of things. So, and that's the thing, is that Aboriginal people are being traumatized by these stories. The Kamloops case, if you found out that 215 children were put in clandestine graves, and now it'd be very, very upsetting for you. So shouldn't we be telling people that it's highly improbable that this is the case? Wouldn't that be a good thing to kind of reduce the trauma that exists?
I noticed in your essay that you do bring up Kevin Annett, and you brought him up here just now. I had thought, correct me if I'm wrong, he's fairly widely discredited. Isn't he a bit of a straw man for you to be utilizing?
I don't think so, because I think a lot of the claims have tremendous similarities to Kevin Annett, and people have watched if you watch Unrepentant, right? You see all the claims being made in Unrepentant. So I don't know, I haven't done a poll of I know the leadership were angry at him because he was a bit of a grandstander and he would show up in various contexts, but I think those stories, they have a Kevin Annett-like kind of feel to them, and maybe it's just a copycat, or those kinds of things get into the air and people are repeating them, and that's it just takes one person to be having a lot of discussions with other people, and they start to have these stories begin to being absorbed as actual memories.
What's your sense, though, from talking to people? I mean, do people widely believe the story about Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip abducting children? Because from people I talked to,
I was surprised. There was an Aboriginal guy here today who was arguing about the Queen Elizabeth II story. So I find it, and I was at Regina, University of Regina, talking to a student there, and I just explained, because this is you might say it's a straw man argument, because who could believe that? But I say to people, Billy Coombs, there is evidence that he's actually saying that. So if we're going to believe all residential school survivors, everything that they say, we've got to believe Billy Coombs. And Billy Coombs said that Queen Elizabeth II abducted 10 children. So I'm just using it as an example that we can't just believe what residential school survivors say, because they could be misremembered. And it's not that and people say, I say they're lying. I'm not saying they're lying. Maybe they're lying, but it could easily be misremembering, confirmation bias, the idea that you've got to believe the knowledge keepers, all these things, which that's not a proper way to weigh evidence in any of these discussions.
One of the things that you get at is that there has been, ground penetrating radar done in some cases that is, not absolute in terms of what it's saying is there. They're saying they can see something in the ground and it looks like it might be a body. How do we move that along to better know what GPR is telling us, do you think?
Well, I have actually now interacted with a number of actual GPR experts, which are geoscience people who know how to read ground penetrating radar. And these are not these incompetents. Terrence Clark, Keisha Supernant, Andrew Martindale. That is what they say what they're looking at is not that, and they're saying that that's likely bodies. That is not the case at all. And I have now had some experience in following an actual scientist around and looking at these anomalies and looking at what you get out of that. And you will get boulders. You will get animal burrows. So GPR is incredibly inaccurate and is completely inconclusive. You must excavate if you're going to find what is beneath the soil. And the Kamloops Indian Band received $12.1 million to excavate. And they need to do those excavations because We need to reduce the trauma that Aboriginal people are experiencing, and we need to have truth for the Canadian public to figure out how to have actual reconciliation.
As you know, Catholic organizations ran a large number of residential schools. There's a lot of proven stories of Catholic institutions being involved in abuse of children and covering it up. How much do you think that kind of knowledge that's out there in the world affects people's tendency to
the Catholic Church is not blameless in all these things that have happened. Sexual abuse is widely, there's been a number of convictions as far as I understand about this. So, and it's a situation that happens not just for Aboriginal people, it happens in all, boarding school type situations. I'm saying that it's much worse for Aboriginal people because of the whole cultural difficulties and so on. So I think that's a big problem, but that's not, Catholics, if they murder people, murder children, that's a serious kind of breach of the Catholic theology. So I don't think that the evidence for the killing of people is very convincing. That's really my issue. Not to deny the sexual abuse or anything like that. I'm an atheist myself. I have no interest whatsoever in all of the Christian kinds of dynamics. People can believe what they want, but I'm not trying to defend the Catholic Church. But if you're going to say that people murdered people, we need the names of the people who were supposedly murdered. We need the names of the perpetrators. We need the specifics. And that's what's got to happen.
As I understand it, you wanted to give a talk here, and you made some inquiries about that, and then what happened with that?
A professor tried to book, they said to this professor, I'm not going to name him because he's going to get a lot of crap for this. No, it's not Daniel. They told him that he could just go ahead and book the rooms, it's no problem, we support academic freedom. Anyway, he tried to book rooms, I believe it was at St. John's College, and they said they couldn't do it because it was going to harm their reconciliation efforts. Then he went through the regular channels, and they thought, it's been going on since June, we've been trying to book these talks since June. I wanted to come in September because of the weather not being horrible and all the things going on, so they said that they were going to charge my organization, the Society for Academic Freedom and Scholarship, between $2,000 and $5,000, and my organization doesn't have very much money, and I'm certainly not going to devote that kind of money to nonsense, which has been created by the University of Manitoba. We had this event today, there's some drumming, there's nothing happened. Like, universities overreact, they don't tell people to behave properly, and they're just trying to avoid the issue. So it was a fantastic event. I had some Aboriginal people who participated, and we got to understand a lot more what their perspective was on the issue, and that's really what you want to do with spectrum epistemology. So, University of Manitoba, shame on them. You're a disgrace, and I'm going to hold you to account for what you've done. You're in the university's Hall of Shame, and you can get out of it by inviting me back and not charging my organization between $2,000 and $5,000.
Now, I understand your nemesis, Murray Sinclair, is not here today, but I don't know if Sean Carlton is. Are you planning on knocking on his door?
I don't think so. I already had a big set to with the head of the University of Manitoba Press, so I don't want to push my election. The director, we went into the area because he said I was a residential school denier, and I wanted evidence for what he was talking about, and I thought that was a very, very damaging thing that his press had said, which I think is just, like, for an academic press to do that is absurd. Anyways, we got him on camera squirming as we talked about this.
Well, anything else you want to cover?
Tomorrow, University of Winnipeg, 2:00 p.m. Negon Sinclair, the aforementioned Negon Sinclair, is on an event at 12 talking about how residential school denialism is a barrier to indigenization. So that's going to be the claim that we're going to investigate tomorrow at the University of Winnipeg.
Is he going to be there, or is there going to be on
I
video?
hope so. I extend an invitation, and I used to call them names, but I'm not doing that anymore. I've turned over a new leaf, so I'm not going to be name calling. I invite both Negon Sinclair and Sean Carlton tomorrow to University of Winnipeg, and I will not call them any names.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
Thank you very much. Anyway, okay, I think we're done. Thank you so much. And I want to do that QC thing while you're talking.
Okay.
Here's the
Again.
Okay.
Maybe I'll step aside here for a moment. Maybe. Yeah, let's hop over here. Well, it's kind of neat. We have sort of like a little free speech sort of conversation happening here as well too. That's kind of cool. Got some university students or whatnot kind of having their own little discussion on the topics. I think that's wonderful. See, look at that. That's a positive. Look at that right here. You see, here's a positive outcome right there. Because of what's happening here today, you got now some people standing around and just having a free discussion. Yeah. Of course, what the entire event was supposed to be, but look, it's already kind of influenced a touch, eh? So that's wonderful. Now, of course, we've heard from Frances now for the last, like, oh gosh, I've probably been filming for about 2 hours. I've had her on the broadcast quite a few times.
He didn't try to hide.
I could step in to try to do a little one-on-one with her right now. Looks like she's still talking to others, but so you know what? I think what I'm going to do.
Right?
Of course, we'll be discussing this more tonight. I have a Prairie Truth broadcast coming out tonight that you don't want to miss. It's going to be awesome. We got a new, young, up-and-comer, kind of already sort of superstar podcaster, Max Genist, going to be joining me tonight at 9 p.m. Central on the Prairie Truth. And I'm certainly going to be discussing this as well. This whole, everything that happened, everything that transpired here today. But yeah, you know what? Unless something else, unless something else sort of transpires here, unless there's another reason to go hop on a live, then I think I'll probably be done here for now. Of course, we will have our cameras. Myself, I won't be there tomorrow, but Winnipeg Alternative Media will be there. Cameras rolling, all live, just as today at the University of Winnipeg with Frances tomorrow as well, 2 p.m. Central. So stay tuned for that. I'll give everybody another little heads up on that during the Prairie Truth tonight. But again, unless something else kind of happens here before I leave here at the U of M, then I think that's going to be it for today. You certainly heard enough from Frances. I'll need to pull her aside. I can have her out of broadcast kind of any time at this point. All right, everybody. This has been one heck of an interesting event to film. Tomorrow, I'm sure, is going to be very interesting as well. And so we will see you there. Todd McDougall signing off for Winnipeg Alternative Media. This is and always will be your Prairie Truth.